So I think we are live. So welcome to this week's Q&A. Last week I ended kind of quickly at the end just because I hit the 20-minute mark and I didn't finish talking about insulin resistance, metabolic health, and things like that. So I want to continue with that. So last week I showed you how you could even test your own blood sugar. I checked my own and told you about why that is so important. And I just want to recap that. What should happen is we eat some food, our blood glucose rises, the pancreas secretes insulin, the insulin carries the blood sugar into the cells, then our blood sugar goes down. Then leptin levels rise, which trigger fat burning. When insulin is out, then we are not going to be breaking down fat. And so that is why there's so many studies coming out right now about intermittent fasting, not eating like the way I learned was to eat 5 or 6 small meals a day. Well, now we're showing that that is not really the right way to eat if you're trying to lose fat. You will not break down any fat if there's blood glucose, if the sugar is high in your blood. So what should happen is the insulin carries the sugar into your cells, the pancreas stops secreting insulin, and then that creates energy. The glucose in the cells creates energy, so you have a lot of energy. So if you eat and you're sluggish, that's a sign something's not going on right. But if you have a lot of energy, then eventually you start to get hungry again, and then you eat again, and the cycle starts again. So before I started today, I did see some questions. Let me make sure I'm in the right place. So thank you. I love it when I get questions. And so I definitely want to get questions. So here's one. How can we accelerate our metabolism is one. And thoughts on carb cycling. So metabolism is very complex. And metabolism is really how well your cells take in nutrients and create energy. And so when we talk about increasing our metabolism, decreasing our metabolism, I have a slow metabolism. When we hear those, we're thinking more about people wanting to lose weight. A lot of times people say, I can't lose weight because I have a slow metabolism. Well, unless they've really had that checked, it may not be necessarily true. It could be that they have poor metabolic health, and we need to work on those receptors, cells taking in the whole cycle. Because like I said last week, 92% of Americans are metabolically unwell. And so it's more important to focus on taking care of the health of our cells than worrying about speeding up or slowing down metabolism. That being said, fasting between meals, not eating small meals throughout the day, going a long time, a break, 12 hours between dinner and breakfast, 12 to 14 hours. 12 hours works usually pretty well for people. Stopping your meals 3 hours before dinner. Those all allow your body to rest and break down your foods, but you also have to make sure you're taking in the right nutrients because if you restrict your calories too much, then your metabolism is going to slow down. That causes stress on the body, and your body just wants to hold on to things. If you are eating way too much food, then you start storing extra calories, and things are stored as fat. And so you have to have the right balance, but it has to be the nutrients. We have to focus more on nutrients. I could vary my foods. So when you asked about your thoughts on carb cycling. So carb cycling works the same, very similar as you eat high carbs on some days and low carbs on some days. And it's so your body gets used to certain things. That works if you are already in good metabolic health. If your cell receptors are working just fine, your blood sugar is going in, your insulin is working, you're creating that leptin, you're breaking down fat cells, everything is right on par, then carb cycling may be the right thing for you just to keep your body going to manage weight, hormones, all those different things. But you want to make sure that you're in good metabolic health first. But those are really great questions because those are hot topics. Those are things that we hear about all the time. But number one is focusing on nutrition. So even if you do carb cycle, the days you're eating more carbs, it's not breads and crackers. It is starchy vegetables. So carrots, yams, sweet potatoes, beets, any of those that are more high in carbohydrates, even your fruits. They have more carbs compared to some of the other foods, but they're still a whole food. So you want to eat whole foods as much as possible. And then on the days that you eat lower carbs, then you don't eat those starchy carbs. You eat like your greens, your broccolis, all your leafy greens and other low starch vegetables. Anyway, those are great questions. And I want you to keep asking questions. If any questions come up, then please ask. So I wanted to continue with what we were talking about last week. So I was talking about what should happen. So in between meals, we have a decreased blood glucose. The sugar has gone into the cells. The pancreas starts to secrete glucagon, and this triggers lipolysis. That's our fat cell breakdown. And then that triggers gluconeogenesis. So that's liver glycogen. So then the blood sugar goes back up a little bit. And then under extreme energy demands, so that's like if you're out running a long distance, you've been running and running and running and running, and you're not replenishing your foods, then that glycogen gets depleted, and then cortisol and adrenaline are released. And that adrenaline triggers lipolysis, and cortisol triggers gluconeogenesis, which is breaking down your muscles. It's much easier for your body to break down protein than it is to break down fat. So in an emergency situation, under high stress, under heavy training, then your body's going to start breaking down muscle instead of the fat, which is what you would prefer. So we have also learned that the brain uses a lot of insulin. So if you have insulin resistance, there's a lot of risks related to the brain. So what happens when you have insulin resistance? When you have insulin resistance, you eat something, your blood sugar goes up just like it does normally. Your pancreas secretes insulin, but then those cells don't take the insulin and your blood sugar stays high. So then your pancreas creates more insulin, and then you have extra sugar in the blood, and so sugar starts to get stored as fat. We start damaging those cell receptors. We start damaging blood cells, because sugar is, if you've ever grew sugar crystals in class, or your kids rock candy, you ever seen that? It's sharp and spiky, so it starts damaging the arteries and things like that. And because your cells aren't getting the sugar they need, they're not able to create the energy they need, so you're tired and you're hungry. And a lot of times people get really hangry. I used to be one of those. I used to be one that would get hangry. I used to, I was taught that you should eat 5 to 6 meals a day, and I always did. If I missed a meal or I was late, like it took me too long to cook breakfast, you did not want to come anywhere near the kitchen, because I used to be one of those people. And so I know how it feels. So what is related to insulin resistance? It could be overeating. It could be genetic, but that's not an excuse. Remember, genes load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. It could be inadequate nutrition. You're not getting all the nutrients you need. It could be high amounts of stress. It could be lack of exercise. It could be poor sleep. If you're not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night, or you're waking up in the middle of the night, if you're eating before bed, any of those things can affect that. So it could be not, when I talked about nutrition, it could be not getting enough omega-3s. So many people drink, even if you switch from dairy, they're drinking almond milk, which is very high in omega-6s, which can be a very healthy fat as long as you're getting DHA. And you get DHA from cold water fish, from algae like spirulina and chlorina, and sea vegetables, but also from walnuts, hemp seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds. They are broken down to DHA, not DHEA. They're two different things. And we want the DHA, that's anti-inflammatory. So if we're eating, lots of almonds and other seeds like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, which are delicious and healthy, but we're not getting walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, sea vegetables, algae, eating cold water fish, then we may have an imbalance there, and that can lead to insulin resistance. It could be a lack of magnesium or zinc or B vitamins from not eating nutrient dense foods. If you're eating real whole plant foods, like you see me eat every day, then you're going to get the nutrients you need. I always tell people to eat greens 3 times a day. It sounds crazy, but you also don't want to eat the same greens 3 times a day. So a lot of people, they just put spinach in their smoothies. Well, spinach is very mild. It's delicious in a smoothie, but you don't want to eat the same thing every day. So try to find ways to add a different green into your breakfast. Bok choy is usually pretty mild. It can be a little bitter, but even just your spring greens. Who doesn't like this delicious different spring green mixes? Put that in your smoothie. Very high in nutrients. And then that also gives you B vitamins and magnesium as well. Adding things like beans, so many different B vitamins in your beans too. Eating too many starches, processed foods. And we don't think of pasta and bread even whole grain bread, that's still a processed food. That bread doesn't look anything like a grain of wheat. So you have to just pay close attention to those things. Those things are treated differently in your body. Fruit juices. If you buy a store-bought fruit juice, you might as well be buying sugar water. They even fortify them because when they're pasteurized, it kills all the enzymes. It destroys the vitamins. So then they have to add the vitamins back to it. You can juice your own and drink it right away if you want the nutrients from a good fruit juice, but don't buy store-bought fruit juice because it's pasteurized. That's sugar water. Any added sugars, watch your added sugars. And stress can really damage those insulin receptors. Like I said, high cortisol comes out to play, and then the hormones, they just create lots of sugar in the blood anytime you're stressed, because you have to be able to run. So anytime you're stressed, that could be from overeating, over exercising, stress from work, stress from traffic, any of those things. It's going to increase the sugar in your blood, which causes damage to your cell receptors. So we have to work on relaxation techniques and different forms of relaxing before we even eat. So symptoms of insulin resistance are belly fat, the big bellies, low energy after your meal. If you eat and then you want to take a nap, that's a big sign. You're hungry 2 hours later. Either you didn't eat enough, or you need to get sugar in the blood, and it's not, in the cells, and it's not getting moved into the cells. You have that mid-afternoon energy slump. You need to have a snack or coffee. That 3 o'clock caffeine jolt, that's a sign. Can't focus in the afternoon, or hangry, like I mentioned earlier. So what are some things to look at in your labs? Last week I said everyone needs to have their hemoglobin A1C checked at least once a year, but doctors usually won't order them unless you already have high fasting glucose. I don't know why. So I just ask for it. You can also just order it yourself. You can go to LabCorp Quest, go online, and you can order your own hemoglobin A1C. I think you can even get at-home tests to test for it as well. You want your hemoglobin A1C to be between 4.5 and 5. A normal non-diabetic level is between 3.5 to 5.5, but they've seen where you can already have damage to your nerve endings and the retina lower than 5.5. And so ideally you want it between 4.5 and 5. So if you do have insulin resistance, then you have prolonged inhibition of fat burning. So you're not burning your fat except maybe a few hours after you sleep. If you eat right before you go to bed, that fat burning is not even going to start until 3 or 4 o'clock. You're not even going to have as long enough time to do all the different things you need to have during your sleep, because your body's shuttling sugar from the bloodstream into your cells. You're going to have excess belly fat, decreased lean muscle, because your body's going to be wanting to break down protein to get more glucose, damage to blood vessel linings, systemic inflammation, high blood pressure, water retention, and a high risk for Alzheimer's. And so it's very important to get this under control. Serious consequences of insulin resistance are increased body fat, thyroid deficiency, impaired thyroid, high cancer risk, high blood pressure risk, injury to blood vessel linings, inflammation in the blood vessels, systemic inflammation, and like I said, Alzheimer's. So all of those, it's a pretty serious matter. So other things you want to get checked as well, not just your A1C, but get your doctor to check your fasting glucose and your fasting insulin, your triglycerides, your HDLs, that's the good fat, and your hemoglobin A1C. For your fasting glucose, ideally, you want it to be between 75 and 85. Now, diabetes isn't until it's over 120. But like I said, signs are shown much earlier than that. And so you want your fasting glucose optimally, ideally, to be between 75 and 85. That's fasting. You would like your triglycerides to be between 50 and 75. That's good. That's excellent, between 50 and 75. So triglycerides show you more about what you've been eating dietarily as far as sugar goes. And so that's another important number to be looking at. So to restore your insulin receptors, you need to increase insulin sensitivity. How can we do that? We cut back on the foods that raise our blood sugar. And so only temporarily, I would reduce some of those starchy vegetables just for a little while those cell receptors can kind of get all the gum out of them. Because last week, I don't know if you remember, if you heard me talking about, it's kind of like when you can grab a ring of keys, and several keys can fit that keyhole, but only one can open and go in. Well, that's how your insulin cell receptors work. And so if you have resistance, it's like somebody stuck some gum in the keyhole. So the first time you can stick the key in and you can jam it in and you can finally turn and get in, but after a while you can't. And so when we restrict those high carb foods, then we're letting those cell receptors recover and get the gum out of there. So it's not permanently. I'm not saying don't eat those starchy carbs forever, because they're important. It's like sweet potatoes, so high in vitamin A, and carrots, so high in beta carotene. Those are so good for you. And so I would never cut them out for long term, just for a little while you clean up those cell receptors. But this decreases the need for insulin. It gives your pancreas a rest. It helps to reduce inflammation, and it also helps your body switch to a fat burning, muscle building system instead of the other way around. So how are we doing on time? We have a little bit longer. So main things are to avoid trans fats, so no baked goods, decreasing your omega-6 to 3 ratio. So if you've been drinking things like almond milk, maybe switch to a hemp milk, or if you need a milk, you want one that is more in omega-3s. Make sure you could add, even if you stick with the almond milk, maybe you could add walnuts or hemp seeds or flax seeds to whatever it is that you're using your almond milk for, to help balance things out. Increasing things like chlorella or spirulina in your smoothies, if you like to have smoothies, or sprinkling on salads. Improve your minerals. That's your greens 3 times a day. I also recommend a large salad every day. If you've been following me, you see we actually are having a salad twice a day lately. It's getting hotter, and so we will probably have salads twice a day. But I want everyone to have a big salad at least once every day. All those greens, different greens, offer different minerals, and that way you're making sure you're meeting all of your mineral needs. I don't like supplements. I like to get everything I need from my food. Improving your B vitamin status. So that's eating beans. Beans are great for B vitamins, as well as your greens. Using resistant exercise. So strength training, anything you can do, push and pull exercises. All of those things help with insulin receptors. Burst training is recommended. No processed foods, no store-bought fruit juices, no sodas, and then working on stress management techniques. Before you eat, slow down. Like, I can't eat right now while I'm talking on here because my stress level is a little bit high. That is going to set me up for disaster. I need to relax before I eat. So saying the blessing before your meals, just taking a few deep breaths before your meals, just to calm your body down, eating slowly, eating when you're not distracted. Chew, chew, chew. Even if you're having a smoothie, you need to chew. Digestion begins in the mouth. We don't want to rush drinking something down. We need to slowly digest and absorb the nutrients from our foods. And then eat to full without overeating and without undereating. You don't want to eat too few foods, because then you're not getting the nutrients that you need. And then just regular meditation techniques throughout the day. Even if it is just to slow down and take a few deep breaths throughout the day. Get up, don't sit at your desk. I get stuck at my desk too. I have a lot of things I have to do, and all of a sudden I'll look and it's been 2-3 hours. Get up, set a timer and get up every hour and walk around the house or the office or up and down the stairs or around the yard. Just give yourself breaks throughout the day, relax, and find time to exercise and sleep. So it's hard to pack all those things in if it's not something that you've already been doing. But pick something that you can do and slowly work on what you can do to help with insulin resistance. Anyway, we are getting to the 20-minute mark. I have a lot more to say about the nutrients and things like that, but I love to hear from you. I would like to hear any questions you have. If our conversation today you made some kind of thought pop up or question pop up, please post in the comments because I love to hear from you. And if there's another topic you want me to talk about next time, let me know too. And if you don't want to post it in the comments, then send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. Have a good day.